So when do we use the Kano model? We've understood what Kano model does, what are the different categories, and how do you talk about different customer features. But when do you really use it? Determining business strategies. When you're planning your sales strategy, your marketing strategy, or your brand strategy, what are the features that you want to talk about? You're making a TV commercial, you're designing a print advertising campaign, or maybe you're going to be part of an expo, a product expo. So what is that you're going to talk about? What of your product features you need to highlight? What is going to delight your customers? So when you determine a business strategy, that's when you would use Kano model. When you do an analysis of your competition, competitive analysis, so you need to identify steps to stay ahead of competition. So you would survey and you would research both your product and service and also that of the competition. When you are running a project, maybe a DMAC project or a new product DFSS, that would again be used for a Kano model. And again, when you're trying to develop a new product or new service, so you're planning to launch a new product. So what is that new product should have to come into the market and straight away win customer satisfaction and the customer loyalty. So we now know what is Kano model, when to use the Kano model. So how to use the Kano model? There are broadly 3 different steps that you would need to follow when you want to analyze your customer needs. One is identify the voice of the customer. As said earlier, the voice of customer is hazy, at times it's invisible, it's not clear, it's vague. They would not talk in measurable terms. They would always talk in qualitative terms. But when you go back to your board meetings, you would need to measure the criteria. So how do you identify the voice of the customer? Now it's very easy. You have social networking sites, Facebook, Twitter, forums, but even the traditional methods, surveys, interviews, feedback forms, focus groups, there are various methods of how you identify, of how you collect what is the voice of the customer. The VOC is what we call it. The second step is you translate VOC into CTQs. CTQs are critical to quality characteristics. Those characteristics that determine the quality of the product, the quality which the customer is willing to pay for, quality which the customer is willing to invest in. So this VOC will help to determine what are the critical quality characteristics, what we call the CTQs. The third step is you evaluate your current performance. So what you've done in the first 2 steps is you know what the customers are saying, you know what your customers are happy about, you know what the customer is not happy about. You've translated those vague statements, those hazy statements into measurable CTQs. Now you need to see how well are you performing in terms of what you were doing maybe 6 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, or when you compare your performance against one of your competitions. So step 1, identify the voice of the customer. As I said, surveys, it would be telephonic surveys, email surveys, you distribute survey forms, interviews, call up your customers and ask them how did they really feel about the service, how did they really feel about the product, was it too costly, was it affordable. Focus groups, you would call a few customers and employees, people who directly interact with the customers, the sales guys, the service guys, and you have a roundtable meeting and see what are their views, what are their observations. Customer complaints and feedback. Every company, every product has a complaint mechanism, a redressal mechanism. So use those customer complaints and feedback. Online consumer forums and social media activities. What's happening on Facebook? Who is recommending you? Who is following your page? Who likes your updates? Who dislikes your updates? So all these help you collect and analyze the voice of the customer. The step 2 was translating VOC into what we call CTQs, or critical to quality characteristics. So as I said, you rank the CTQs into 3 categories. Dissatisfiers, what were the must-be customer requirements. Satisfiers were the performance needs, more the better, and essential to stay competitive and be in the market. And delighters, the wow factors, the differentiators. So once again, must-be requirements is something that is obvious, which are required to even enter a market. Satisfiers are what help you stay competitive and sustain, and delighters is what takes you one level above the competition and create a wow experience for your customers. Step 3 is how you evaluate the current performance. So how do you make action plans? How do you select a project? There might be 3 or 4 or maybe 30 improvement ideas. So which are the ideas that you work first upon? So how do you select a project? What new product or new service that you would have to develop, or what innovation you would require in your existing product, or what innovative marketing strategy would you have to use to reach out to the customers and tell them about what is good about your product and why should they really use your product compared to what others are offering. Now, customer requirements can be classified by a questionnaire. So we spoke about how to evaluate. So now Kano developed a questionnaire that would help a company classify and categorize customer requirements. Now, in a Kano model, in a Kano questionnaire, you ask every question in 2 different forms. One is known as the functional form of the question, the other is known as the dysfunctional form of the question. Both ask about the same feature but in opposite ways. The functional form would say, how do you feel if that feature is present in the product, service or process? So coming back to the hotel example, how would you feel if the room was clean? That would be the functional form of the question. The dysfunctional is completely opposite. How do you feel if that feature is not present in the product? So how would you feel if the room was not clean, if the room was untidy? So in a nutshell, you're asking the same question in 2 different ways because you're trying to judge how would the customer react to the presence and to the absence of a specific product feature. To each question, the customer can choose from 5 options. So what are these 5 options? I like it that way. It must be that way. I'm neutral. I can live with it that way, and I dislike it that way. So if you ask the customer, how would you feel if the room is clean? He could say, I like it that way. Most probably he would say, I like it that way. He would not, or he might say, it must be that way. But he would not say, I dislike it that way. Everybody would love a clean hotel room. But these are the 5 options that you provide the customer for both the functional and dysfunctional form of the question. Normally, what I've observed is Kano questionnaires combine the 2 questions for every product one after the other. It's best to separate them. Maybe the functional form should be on the first page for a specific product, and the dysfunctional form for the same feature should be maybe on the second page or on the third page. So the customer really has to think twice about how the presence or the absence of the same feature would impact his view about your product, would impact his decision to use your product or your feature. So again, I have another example here of a customer help desk. In today's world, all of us would have some time called the customer help desk for an airline inquiry, for technical support, for hotel reservations. So in this case, when you call a customer help desk, what greets you nowadays is an interactive voice response, the IVR. It's an automated voice that gives you multiple options to choose from, or in case the actual representatives are busy with other customers, the IVR would ask you to wait till one of the agents is available to answer your call. So in this example, the functional form would go something like this. If you have to wait for less than 2 minutes before the customer service rep answers your call, how do you feel? So it's asking you that do you want the customer service rep to immediately answer your call when you call the customer service help desk? Immediately, or maybe in less than 2 minutes. So what the strategist is trying to do here is he's trying to identify what should be the ideal wait time for people calling to the customer help desk, and they've come to a duration of 2 minutes. So now they want to know, as a customer, how do you feel if you have to wait for less than 2 minutes? You can answer is one of the 5 options. You like it that way? It must be that way? You are neutral. It does not really affect you if he answers immediately or if they make you wait for 10 minutes. Highly unlikely, because you would not want to wait for 30 minutes for your call to get answered, but there is the option. And the dysfunctional would again read as, if you have to wait for more than 2 minutes before the customer rep would answer your call, how do you feel? Just the opposite. So this one talks about if the said feature, the feature here is answering your call in less than 2 minutes, is it present and it's absent, so how do you feel in both the scenarios? So once the business would have this question answered by a substantial sample size, they would come to know that do they really need to invest in hiring more resources and improving the speed of answer for the service help desk. So the customer responses, when you answer the previous question, the functional and the dysfunctional, those responses get categorized in 6 different groups. Attractive, this is what the delight is. Must be, something that your product must have. One-dimensional, the performance needs. Now we have 3 more: indifferent, reversed, and questionable. Now what are these 3? So we've already discussed about the top 3. Let's talk about indifferent, reversed, and questionable. Ideally, you would look into a survey for the top 4. What is attractive? What is must be? What is one-dimensional? And what is the customer is indifferent towards? Reversed and questionable are very rare options while doing a questionnaire. So what's indifferent? Indifferent, as it says, is the customer is indifferent to the product feature. So its presence and its absence does not really affect the customer. He is completely indifferent towards it. That means the customer is neither satisfied nor dissatisfied when the product or service is dysfunctional or fully functional. So no matter how much you work on improving this particular feature, this is not going to affect the customer, either in a positive way or in a negative way. So such a customer would be plotted roughly along the horizontal axis, that is the neutral level of satisfaction. Reversed, now the presence of this feature actually would cause dissatisfaction. So while you would be working hard, investing a lot of resources and money in developing a product feature, but this feature, while present, is actually causing customer dissatisfaction. This product or service feature is not only not wanted by the customer, but they even expect the reverse of it. Now coming to the questionable category, this generally happens when the customer does not really understand what is that you are trying to ask. This can happen when you put the functional and dysfunctional questions together. The customer might get confused, and that is when you get a questionable category. The question was phrased incorrectly, there might be a typo error, the person interviewed misunderstood the question, so he selected a wrong answer, or the customer crossed out a wrong answer by mistake. That's when you would get a questionable rating for a particular questionnaire. So a snapshot of the 6 categories: one-dimensional, when the feature is present, the customer is satisfied. When it's absent, the customer is dissatisfied. Must be, when it's present, no feeling to the customer. When it's absent, it dissatisfies the customer. Attractive, when it's present, the customer obviously is satisfied. When it's absent, it does not really affect the customer satisfaction. Indifferent, the customer has no feeling. Where the product is absent, has the feature, it does not have the feature. Reverse is just the opposite. The feature is actually what is making the customer dissatisfied. So you would want to remove that feature from your product. And questionable, as we spoke about, is generally when you either phrase the questionnaire incorrectly, the customer does not understand the question, or by mistake he selects a wrong answer. So now what we've done is we've understood the Kano model, we have the questionnaire, and we have collected the customer responses. So now how do we plot those responses to understand which question or which category falls into questionable, attractive, indifferent, or must be? Where does it fall? So Kano developed an evaluation table. Here you would plot each question. So you have along the horizontal line the dysfunctional question, the vertical would have the functional question. So if the customer says that I like it when the feature is present, and he also says I like it when the feature is absent, that's a questionable category. He cannot like it both ways. So that means he had made a wrong choice. But Suppose a customer says, I like a feature, and he says it must be for the dysfunctional form. That becomes an attractive feature. So what you do is plot both the responses, and whichever box it would fall into, that is what your product category is. We would explain this by using the same example again. The speed of answer by the customer service representative. So when you call into a customer help desk, how soon is your call getting answered? So the same question again. If you have to wait for less than 2 minutes before the customer service rep answers your call, how do you feel? So I say it must be that way. So what I'm saying is I want it to be that way. I always want the representative to answer the call in less than 2 minutes. The dysfunctional form reads, if you have to wait for more than 2 minutes before he answers your call, how do you feel? So how do I feel? I can live with it that way. So I'm saying is, okay, I can manage. Suppose if it takes 3 minutes or it takes 4 minutes, I can manage. It does not really irritate me. I can live with it that way. So once I say it must be that he should answer in less than 2 minutes, but when you ask me the opposite question, what I'm saying is I can live with it. I can manage if the call is getting answered in a little more than 2 minutes. Obviously, I do not mean to wait for 10 minutes, but 3 minutes, 4 minutes, okay, I can understand. So now we plot this. I said that in the functional form, I like it that way. So that's where it falls. I'm sorry, I think I said it must be that way. So this is where it would fall. It must be that way. And in the dysfunctional, I said I can live with it that way. So this is where you would select the category. So what you are doing is you're plotting your responses in these boxes, and whichever box it would fall, you would select that a particular category is either attractive, it's indifferent, it's a must-be requirement, or maybe it's a questionable category. Maybe the customer did not understand it. So now what I would do is I would plot the numbers. So the speed of answer, the previous slide was the response from one customer. Suppose you surveyed 50 customers, so you would plot how many customers said that speed of answer is an attractive requirement. How many said that it's a one-dimensional or a proportional or a desired quality. How many said that they are indifferent to it. It does not really bother whether they are made to wait 1 minute or whether they are made to wait 10 minutes. So whichever category has the highest frequency. So frequency of answers based on all responses is the easiest way to evaluate and identify categories for product attributes and features. So category with the highest frequency is the final category for the product attribute. So I have developed this example further. Again, the customers help this example. Here we have 3 questions. The speed of answer, first call resolution. First call resolution would mean is that suppose you have a technical issue or you have a billing issue and you call the help desk and you want them to solve your problem. You want them to answer your query, and on the very first interaction with the help desk, your issue gets resolved. That's first call resolution. Or in the first call, they say that, okay, sir, we are going to call you back, or can you call us back maybe tomorrow, or maybe in 2 hours from now, you call again. That's not a first call resolution. You had to talk to them twice, maybe more than twice, to get your issue resolved. So do you want your issue to be resolved every time on the very first interaction? That's first call resolution. And the ability to understand the service representative. Were you able to communicate with the person who answered the call without any difficulties? Did he understand what you said? Were you able to comprehend what did he say? So we surveyed 43 customers on these 3 different questions. So each question would have had a functional form and a dysfunctional form. So we already saw the functional form and the dysfunctional form for the first question, that is the speed of answer. Let's talk about the first call resolution. How would you frame it? So the functional would read is, how do you like when your issue gets resolved on the very first interaction with the customer service help desk? That's the functional form. The dysfunctional would read is, how do you feel when you have to call back twice or more than twice to get your issue resolved? That's the dysfunctional form. So out of 43 responses, if you look at the first question, the speed of answer, 21 customers felt that answering the call in less than 2 minutes, which is to make them wait for less than 2 minutes to get answered or get heard, was an attractive requirement. 9 people felt that it's in one dimensional. Okay, the sooner you answer, the more satisfied they are. 11 felt that that's a must-be requirement. The call should always be answered in less than 2 minutes. And one customer said that no, it does not really matter me whether they answer in 2 minutes or they take 20 minutes. One customer says it's the reversed category. So he does not want the call to be answered in less than 2 minutes. Maybe he wants to ring the number and he wants to wait, getting the documents ready, getting the information ready. So whatever his logic is, answering the call immediately is something which dissatisfies this customer. So you would have all kinds of customers. Which one is that you're really going to listen to? Which is going to be the final category? The category with the highest frequency. For the first question, it's the attractive. 21 people out of 43 feel that answering the call in less than 2 minutes is an attractive feature for your customer service help desk. Coming to first call resolution, 26 people out of 43 feel that if you resolve my issue quickly, I'm going to be more satisfied. And the longer you take, that's going to affect my satisfaction levels. And ability to understand, 19 people feel that that's a must-be requirement. When I call a customer service help desk, I expect the person answering the call to understand me. I expect that I should be able to comprehend what he or she is trying to say. So 19, the highest frequency, becomes the must-be requirement for your customer service reps. So these three categories is going to help you when you're trying to train people who are going to work for your help desk. You want to hire people who are able to speak and understand the language which is being used by your customers. So if you hire someone who cannot speak English, but the customers are the ones who would call and would demand answers or explanations in English, you're going to dissatisfy your customers, because this is a must-be requirement. You will need to have help tools for your representatives to help them resolve issues on the very first call, because higher the resolution rate, the more satisfied your customers are. So what Kano model does is, it helps you understand which of your features are a must-be requirements, which of the features are going to help you delight your customers. Then you can analyze that against each of these features, how well are you placed? How well are you performing? So if I talk about the communication, how many of your customer service help desk have a good communication rating? So what are the strategic goals? What we have done so far is we've understood the history of the Kano model. When is it used? How is it used? The Kano model snapshot, the questionnaire, the response categories, and the evaluation table, which finally lets us achieve which category should each product feature should fall into. So what should be my strategic goals when using the Kano model? Fulfill all must-be requirements. So any requirement that my customer segment feels that are the basic requirements of the service have to be fulfilled. I cannot expect to stay in the market. I cannot expect to be profitable. I cannot expect my customers to be loyal if I am not answering, if I'm not fulfilling what are the basic needs of a product. Be competitive with regards to one-dimensional requirements. Now, one-dimensional requirements are those features which, as and when you improve, the satisfaction levels would start increasing. So this is where a customer is going to measure you against your competition. Value for money, ease of use, accessibility. These are some required features for every service. So how well are you stacked up against your competition? So here you cannot reach the ultimate level because these are directly proportional. But what you've got to make sure is that you are competitive. You are among the topmost performers for these particular features. And then stand out from the rest with regards to attractive requirements. Understand when and where which innovative feature addition is going to delight your customers, is going to create a wow experience. Keep an eye on what such features is your competition introducing to delight their customers? And understand that over a period of time, these delighters are going to become must-be requirements, and you would be implied to fulfill these features all the time, or else stand a risk of losing your customers. So these three categories, features, are something that every product needs to have, needs to fulfill and innovate to win more customers and have customer loyalty and satisfaction to what would make your company profitable and stay ahead of the competition. That in a nutshell is what Kano model helps businesses do. I hope you would enjoy the entire presentation and it answers your queries about how and when to use the Kano model. Thank you very much.